I'm Jenny with the Trust and Reiki and Wellbeing Center, and I just wanted to answer a question that is a little bit involved, like it was too involved for me to just jot off a quick reply. So I was asked by Connie, hi Connie, about if when I'm out and about, if I sense energy from other people or what kinds of things I read from them. And that answer is a little more complex than just a yes or no type of thing. So first of all, I always keep protection around myself. Our energy is always vulnerable, okay? And a lot of people don't realize this. Most people walking around are picking up basically like energetic, almost like if you go out and you might be around somebody with a cold, and catch a little bit of that cold virus and then you're fighting it off. It's the same thing with energy, similar anyway. So you could be out and about near somebody who has some negative energy they're carrying around and you might end up picking up a little bit of it. Likewise, there are people known as psychic vampires. The vast majority of these people are not doing this intentionally, but some people will suck energy from others, usually unintentionally. They just kind of siphon it off. And both of those things are really unpleasant to deal with. Most people don't know that it's happening to them. They just might know that they feel out of sorts. They feel sort of down in the dumps. They feel extra tired. They might actually even get sick because they're a little bit more vulnerable. And so I always keep protection around myself. And as far as how that protection works, that's a topic for an entirely different conversation. It's a lot more in depth than I want to get into right now. But just suffice it to say, I usually keep protection around myself. That keeps any of that negative energy from getting into my own energy. And likewise, it keeps me from, picking up any of those types of things. But at the same time, I'm also not sensing other people's energy unless I intentionally do so. Typically, if I'm out and about and I'm around other people, I'm not trying to invade their energy. That just is kind of rude, I wouldn't do that. It's kind of like personal space, just like you wouldn't walk into a store and go rub up against a stranger. Well, at least most of you wouldn't. But the average person isn't going to do that. It's the same thing with energy. Getting into someone else's energy is a little bit invasive. It's private, it's intimate, and without an open invitation or something explicit being stated, it's just a little bit rude. You might accidentally, if you're in a crowded place, you might end up against somebody if it's really crowded, like those of you who go to clubs, or even if you're just in a crowded store like Black Friday or some horror like that. But anyway, so as far as picking up on energy from other people, yeah, it can happen at times, but for me, myself, I keep that protection around myself to try and prevent that from happening. Now, that said, we all have an energy body, and I want to be really clear about this. This is something that has actually been scientifically proven. There's a lot about energy that people don't understand, that our scientists don't understand yet, but that is one of the things that has been proven. Our energy body exists, and it's not just in our physical body, it extends outside of our physical body. And I've had people ask me a lot, well, how far outside the physical body? And that's the interesting thing, is it's always changing. So let's say that you're feeling anxious, frightened, sad, extra tired. Your energy body might contract until it's really close to your physical body. Other times it gets much more expansive when you're feeling in love, when you're feeling happy, when you're with people you care about, friends, family, whoever, and then it might become more expansive because you're having those positive feelings. Likewise, when I do energy work, I'm reaping some of the benefits of that energy work myself. And as a result, my energy body expands quite a bit. Now, I have had on rare occasions, and this is not super common, but I have had on rare occasions where I've been doing an extreme amount of energy work in a day, way more than I normally would do in a given day. And typically if that happens, I want to just kind of go home and chill, go to bed, read a book, whatever, and not be out in crowds. But I have had happen on rare occasions where I've been doing tons of energy work in a day, way more than normal, and then for whatever reason, stopped in a store or went somewhere in public where there were a lot of other people. And after doing that amount of energy work in a day, my energy body was so incredibly expansive that, people that were 30, 40, 50 feet away from me were inside my energy body, so I couldn't help but, kind of read them, so to speak. I have on one of those occasions where I was reading thoughts of everybody around me, and that just really creeped me out, and I didn't ever want to do that again. It was interesting, but not something that I really wanted to repeat. But, like if somebody's inside your energy body, you're going to pick up things from them, feelings, sensations, get an idea of just what their general mood is, if they seem like a good person, if they seem like they have good intentions, if they're in a bad mood, a good mood, happy, sad, scared, anxious, those types of things. You'll just get general senses. So yeah, that has happened, but I don't really seek that out. That's not something that I go out and try to. Like, that would be really overwhelming for that to happen all the time. And I don't spend a lot of time in like crowded places. I don't like really go to crowded things. I mean, when I was a lot younger, I went to clubs and stuff like that, but I haven't done that in years. I really prefer to have either, solitary or with one or two friends and, get kind of low key, I'm almost 50 years old. I've said that before. Those partying days are long gone for me. I mean, I have fun in other ways now. And to me, being in crowds of people is just not enjoyable at this phase of my life. And probably that much more so because I do so much more energy work now than I did when I was younger. So that's probably made me that much more sensitive to being around so much energy. And as an example of that, there was a time when I was in between houses where I had to go live in an apartment complex. And, well, I say had to, I probably had other options, but none of them were my choice either. And during that time, I spent 4 years living in an apartment complex, which is the only time in my life I've ever done that. I've lived when I was much, much younger in apartments in small buildings, like maybe an old house that had been turned into apartments, that sort of thing. But that was when I was in my late teens, and I really hadn't done that since. I'd only lived in houses. And see, when you're in a house, you have your own space, and the yard outside the house is also your own space, right? So unless somebody's trespassing or visiting, you're not picking up on other people's energy very close. I mean, the closest person to you is going to be your closest neighbor, and in a house, you've got, outdoors separating your house from theirs. Well, in an apartment, you don't have that. You just have a wall in between you, and people are crowded in a lot more closely. So living in this apartment, it was just sensory overload all of the time, and it was really intense. It was not something that I want to ever repeat, ideally. So my preference is to live in a house, and there's other reasons why I prefer houses to apartments, but that is definitely a big one because there's just so many people so close together, and not only do you have the sounds and all that activity from that standpoint, from the normal five senses that we acknowledge, but then you also have that quote-unquote sixth sense where you're picking up on their energy, and it's just like constant activity of all this energy going on around you all the time, and it can get very, very overwhelming, can be very exhausting, very draining, and I ended up getting very, very sick while I lived there. And it was a fine apartment. There was nothing wrong with the apartment itself. It was just that type of environment is not for me. I'm too energy sensitive. So I hope that sort of in a long roundabout way answers your question. I don't purposely seek out to read other people's energy as a general rule. There might be rare exceptions to that, but most of the time, no. But, if somebody happens to pass through my energy field, I will pick things up just because it's inside my energy field, so it's sort of inside that protection that I've put up around it, and that really can't be helped. For the most part anyway. And there's other types of protection to be used so you're not picking up any heebie-jeebies from them, but as far as sensing their energy and that sort of thing, that does happen when they're in close proximity. So I hope that answers your question, Connie, and I hope that's been helpful to anybody else out there who might have been curious about that type of thing. And I just wanted to see if I could explain that as best as possible. And thanks for watching. I hope to meet you in the next video. And namaste.